Hello boys and girls, this is Daniel, Show of Force, and today we will look into some juicy high stakes hands I played recently on GG Poker. And today will be pretty cool because we have big pots, we have Pio Solver, we have exploits, we have 3bet Bluffing, backdoor straights even. So all the good stuff. Let's just jump right in the action. I want to keep this fast paced, really value driven. Let's go. So first hand here we have at 5100. We are playing against a good reg, but I believe he's on the passive nitty side. That will be pretty relevant later. We have pocket queens, aka mamacitas. Let's see, we get an open, obviously 3-betting, call. Not gonna discuss the obvious stuff. And on the flop already I think we have a bit of a discussion to do, because I see people like range betting these boards all the time, especially at like lower to mid stakes. And I hate to break it to you guys, but this is not a thing. We are not playing, we don't have a linear range here. We're not in this like linear range where your range is very strong. You can range bet a lot of boards, especially being in position. Here we have like a 19% range. That's pretty wide, and it's also full of junk, so that makes our range way weaker, and we will have to check back a lot of boards, even boards like these that look like range bet boards. So I will be mixing here with quarter pot as my sizing, but important to note already, like we are mixing, so we can even go to Pio Solver really quick. Let's see. So can wherever you can like see a bit of my range here. Actually don't look at it. I'm using a simplified range, so as you can see I am 3-betting like 19%. I think it's more important to get the frequency right instead of the exact hand selection. I think that's actually important in poker. Frequencies are more important than specific hands, as long as the EVs are very close. So I have a simplified range here, and you can see it's c-betting only 54%, even with the quarter pot sizing. Again, a mistake people do, range betting these boards. Don't be that guy. And if you see, because you know like a lot of people are doing this, think about like how you can exploit them. Maybe check raise a lot, maybe do some node locking, go in the lab a bit. But this is definitely a nice exploit spot you should be looking into, because yeah, people are not playing these spots correctly. So back to the hand, being Mr. Producer here with changing the scenes. So checking back queens, yeah, we'll see in the sim as well. That's fine. And on the turn, he uses a pot size. He uses a pot size, which I thought was an interesting size to use. He's obviously saying he has a king or better and draws. So here we definitely not folding, but it's already interesting to see what his strategy should be. So let's switch it back here real quick. Queens, again mixing flop. On the 5 turn, let's actually just give me a second to rerun the sim. All right, so we have here, I gave him, I think this is also an interesting point, where I gave him a mix of quarter pot and pot size, because he's obviously using pot size as the big size. But I think here it kind of makes sense, at least in GTO land, it makes sense to also have a block size, because of how my range is constructed from pre-flop. I have a lot of air here, because I 3-betting so wide. I have a lot of air that he wants to protect against and just get me to fold random like overcards, ace highs. Let's see like what the block size is doing here. So it gets me to fold like some queen highs, even like, yeah, like some ace highs here, and some random like jack x, 10x. Probably he's not playing this strategy, but I think it's worth it to note that I believe a block size in this specific scenario, because block bet does benefit him quite a bit in this spot. I think this is good. He bets. Our reaction here, obviously always calling queens, cannot fold. Come on guys. And we have a bit of raising. Makes sense, the board being so drawy. He's probably also has a lot of draws himself that he's betting. Let's keep it condensed and call. So yeah, calling I would say is the only option. Maybe doing some raising here. I think raising is interesting against the pot size because again he has a lot of draws. There are a lot of draws available on the board, so I can see that being a thing. But we call, and let's see back. I think this is so funny. Just let me know, like, again, drop if this is working for you and this is like creates a nice experience. Like, obviously subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like this video. Let me know how you like this this producing going on. So get the 10 river, and yeah, this is it's an interesting river. It's an interesting one. He bets big here, like 3/4 spot. We don't have much behind, so I have like 8.4k behind, 5.4k in the pot, and he uses this sizing. I thought this was like pretty weird in game as him, because as the stacks are and the ranges look, I was thinking like he should use like a mix of block and all in. From an exploitative standpoint, if he was bluffing, I would expect him to bluff with the all-in size, and I was actually ready to call against that with my pretty good blockers. I'm blocking quite a few flushes with my queen high here, with my queens with the queen of diamond, but just this like 75% bet look like a non-standard sizing that he will underbluff, where he kind of wants to get called by me, doesn't want to scare me away with a shove. So yeah, I felt like I don't really like calling here. This felt really close. I did not really like calling, so I decided to fold. But I think we can definitely consider a raise here. I know it sounds kind of crazy. We don't have much behind. It's kind of almost like a 2x raise. But if you think about it, we do have quite a few flushes ourselves. We have some strong hands ourselves. We have like some pocket tens that I would feel comfortable shoving tens here. Maybe even like, yeah, probably also like some king 10 I can shove for value against this sizing. Maybe that's a bit closer exploitatively, but I can definitely have a lot of value here. And it's not that easy to find bluffs, right? Like we checked back flop, we called a pot size bet. So I think this has good blockers for a bluff here. And I think we would actually get a lot of respect. Not a lot of people think about their range well enough, and they don't really bluff very well in this line with this shove here. So yeah, I can find bluffs. Don't worry, guys. So yeah, I did RNG just like a fold. I did not really like calling against this size. Let's go back to bio now and see what the reaction is there. So here in bio, we get the old bio solver special, where we are doing a bit of everything as him. Shoving makes sense. Block betting makes sense on a river that changes quite a bit and does make me a bit strong. Does help a part of my range at least. So let's go with with a 3/4 pot bet and see what our reaction should be, at least in theory. So our specific hand, queen heart, queen diamond, is mixing call and fold. So queens with the diamond are mixing, but it's important here. So this is another important point, so pay attention here. This is important. Queens here, if we look at the EV, because it's like a mix, means like it's a 0 EV bluff catcher. Actually, I was surprised something as good as queens here against 3/4 spot is actually still mixing folding so much, but it did feel close in game, and it seems we are kind of different. And the important point here is we are not making money by calling queens here. It's a 0 EV call. We make zero money by calling. It's like a pure bluff catcher. We don't make money. So this means against a balanced opponent, we are making no money. If he is under bluffing, which I think he is, our 0 EV bluff catcher becomes quite minus EV. The only way we make money by calling here is if he really like way over bluffs. If he if he significantly over bluffs, we're making quite a bit of money with queens here. But is that the case? Like, I don't think with this sizing, with this much money behind, 3/4 pot, I don't think he's over bluffing. So if the best case scenario, he's kind of balanced and we're making zero money. Worst case scenario, if like the best case I make zero and worst case I lose, obviously I would always fold here in this in this specific spot. It's like, how do you get exploited? Because I think a lot of people are like, but that can be like very exploitable. Yeah, the way he would exploit me is if he knows I'm over folding the spot, he's actually gonna over bluff me, or if my assumption is wrong and he's over bluffing. But I think my assumption is good in this spot, and again, I don't think he's gonna overdo it here because this guy is definitely over folding his bluff catchers here. I look quite strong, and I look quite strong calling a pot size bet, and I do have quite a few strong hands here, so I don't think he's gonna run me over. Here I would say this is like an important concept when it comes to river bluff catching. When you have a close pot, think about this process. And that's it for this specific hand. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, let's go to the next hand. I need to get better at producing and like framing my myself in the scene here, but I promise I will improve. Okay, let's go with another fun hand. This is a fun hand. It's a pre-flop spot. We will emphasize the pre-flop quite a bit because I think it's an important one that a lot of people are getting wrong. We are playing 25-50. The cutoff posts big blind. You know what that means. So I know he was a pretty big recreational. He's pretty loose there, and that's relevant. We have button who is a good reg, isolating here, and it's back to me. So let's talk about this pre-flop spot. Here my situation becomes interesting. I will want to play quite a few hands to get involved with the recreational, and we have three dynamic variables here at play. How big, and not necessarily when, like this can be a limp. We can treat it as a limp because it's a more common scenario. And we have three dynamic variables. It's like how big the recreational is, how much of a recreational is, I guess, the ISO size the reg uses, and the ISO range the reg will use. Based on how big the fish is, the reg can also isolate wider or tighter, or based on the reg. These are not really like standard ranges. So because all of these can vary a lot depending on the situation, this makes me as the big blind here having a standard range is very difficult because I want to play with the fish. I will have my calling range will be wider than normal, and based on how big the fish is, I will want to call more or less, how aggressive he is, and this makes building my range kind of challenging, especially the 3bet bluffing part, because I can easily like 3bet my best hands here. Like the calling range is also intuitive. The 3betting top range is intuitive, but the 3bet bluffing range, it's hard because you have to think, okay, what's my worst calling hands here, and what are some hands. The way I select it is like hands that are a bit too bad to call but have some good blocker. So ace x, king x, I usually emphasize these as 3bet bluffs here, and you can see how this is quite difficult to do in game on the fly, especially if you like multi-tabling and whatever. So an advice for you, a tip for you for another pre-flop tip here, when you are getting 3bet in this spot, as when the big blind 3bets you, it's so hard for him to be bluffing adequately, and it's so easy to just like 3bet the top hands, call the good hands, fold the rest, that you should be over folding quite a bit against 3bets here, I would say. Unless you're playing against me, in which case I will sometimes 3bet king 3 suited here. And the recreational decides to take a stand. He sees through my shenanigans, obviously, and the reg folds. And let's go through the rest of the hand, because I think it's interesting as well. No pio solver in this hand. Sorry, you cannot really. No solver required. This is only like freestyle solver. Show 4 solver. So here on the flop against the fish, even though he is a big fish, as you can see from post and cold calling, he's probably on the passive side. This is a board. He's still like, he's not gonna be that wide when he cold calls like 14 BB here. So this is a board that is pretty connected. I think it will hit his range quite a bit. I don't really like bluffing out of position with such low equity on a board that he hits quite often. So I decide to check. I'll probably like check fold this hand, and I can always, especially if I pick up some equity, but I can always bluff him off later in the hand. So he checks back, and we do pick up some mysterious equity here. So definitely people cannot really see it coming. So I decide when he checks back, I think he has quite a few overcards. I think he will stab. Maybe he will stab somewhat often with a pair on the flop for like protection, team value, whatever. And I think his range has enough ace highs, king highs, that maybe I can get him to fold off turn, or maybe my plan here is like turn river, because I don't think recreationals really fold to one street of aggression. So I like just going here, like more like kind of a medium size, and maybe still get some calls from some ace highs, some ace jack, ace queen, ace 5, ace 4, ace 3, ace 4 I don't want him to have. He calls like some other flush draws or whatever he decides to not call, to not stab himself, sorry. And here we somehow have a straight in this big pot. I don't know how. I have a straight in this like huge 3bet pot with a 3. Another question is like, how do we get value, right? If he has ace high, overcards, whatever, he's gonna fold anyway. So I want to get max value the times he has a pair here. And I kind of have to think, okay, what's the most he can call with a pair? He probably doesn't have a strong pair, because he would maybe like, yeah, he would probably stab flop. Doesn't have top pair. I decide to go with 2.4k. In retrospect, I would like to see myself going bigger, being a bit more greedy. I don't think he's folding a pair. 2.8k maybe, something like this. He does live to fight another day, and it looks like our bluffing him off of ace high with 2 streets would have worked. So guess plan works out. But the important part here is like constructing pre-flop, dynamic pre-flop ranges in this kind of spot. I think it's kind of counterintuitive and hard, and I think again you can exploit regs by overfolding, and you can do it yourself quite well, because it's a spot like you should be attacking regs. Some regs are very out of line with isolating. Good spot to attack. All right. This was the last hand for today. Again, a juicy one. I hope you enjoyed it. All right. This was it for today. I hope you enjoyed these breakdowns. If you want to see more of these high stakes like hand reviews, I think there were like some interesting concepts in it, some good exploits to think about, some good stuff to take away and implement in your game. Like this video if you liked it, like comment, let me know how you liked it so I can do more of this in the future. Subscribe to this channel. And also if you like feel stuck with your game and want a personalized roadmap to improvement, I recently opened my coaching to the public, and I'm just gonna drop a link down below if you want to check that out. But that has been it for me for today. This has been Daniel. show of force. Peace out. That was so gay.
Yeah, it's the pokers. I play it every day. Got the sturdiest chip stacks from tourneys to six max. Hate us for nothing. Straight flush or bluffing. Please believe I'll be caking and crushing. Yeah, it's the pokers. I play it every day. Got the sturdiest chip stacks from tourneys to six max.